The distress signal reached Earth weeks after the Vanguard was declared lost. A garbled, looping transmission echoed from deep space, just one phrase repeating endlessly, "We're still alive. Don't come." It wasn't the message itself that disturbed Commander Elise Corrin. It was the voice. She'd served with the crew of the Vanguard. She recognized the voice. It belonged to Captain Rourke, but it wasn't right. The tone was wet, slurred, stretched as if something was puppeteering his larynx from the inside. A rescue mission was launched anyway. The Sable Horizon breached orbit around the derelict ship 3 days ago. And now, contact with Sable Horizon had gone dead. Elise sat alone in Mission Command, staring at the flickering screen. No life signs, no motion, no response. Only that same message bleeding through the static. "We're still alive. Don't come." But something had already come. When Elise reviewed the external footage sent before contact was lost, the Vanguard appeared perfectly intact. Its hull glistened like fresh oil, undamaged despite vanishing 6 months ago near the Grendel Rift. No signs of distress, no debris, no scorch marks. Just a black sheen and absolute stillness. What was missing was more alarming. The usual blinking of navigation lights, the humming reactor core, all gone. It was a ship in space but not in motion, like a corpse waiting to rot. The Sable Horizon's boarding team reported finding power conduits alive and humming, yet no sign of the crew. Every corridor was clean. Too clean. Elise rewound the final feed again. Just before the signal cut off, the boarding team's lights caught movement behind a bulkhead. Not human, too fast, too fluid. The last moments from the Sable Horizon feed showed the team's bioreaders spiking, heart rate skyrocketing, followed by screams cut short. One voice, soaked in static, broke through. "They're here, but they're not them. They wear their faces." Then silence. Elise's hands shook as she looped the final second again. Behind the team, a figure stepped into view. Tall, skeletal, glistening. It wore the captain's uniform. But the eyes were all wrong. Milky, flat, and moving independently like jellyfish in a jar. Elise sent a level 9 lockdown on all rescue missions. No one else would go near that ship, not until they knew what had come back. Whatever inhabited the Vanguard, it wasn't human. The Vanguard began to move. No engines fired, no propulsion logs, but telemetry showed it slowly drifting toward Earth's outer defense perimeter. The motion was unnatural, like it was being pulled, or worse, crawling of its own will. Elise stared at the projection on the command center's hollow screen. It wasn't just drifting, it was aiming. She initiated a remote override to halt the vessel. No response. Then the message changed. The looped phrase distorted further. "We're still alive. Don't. Then it stuttered into silence. A moment later, a new message appeared on every monitor in the room. "Let us in." Elise didn't know what was worse, that the Vanguard wanted entry, or that Earth might let it. They attempted to lock out the Vanguard's approach. Orbital defense systems were primed, but the ship was no longer responding to known code or commands. A single probe was dispatched to scan it from a safe distance. Its visual feed returned 10 minutes later, flickering, unfocused. It hovered near the Vanguard's airlock. The hatch opened. No vacuum burst. No noise. Just thick black tendrils spilling out like smoke. Then, a shape crawled into view. Elise leaned closer. It wore a human flight suit, but its limbs bent in the wrong places, elbows reversed, head too wide. The face looked peeled. Yet it smiled, broad and cracking, as if it knew it was being watched. Then the feed went black. Earth's orbital systems reported anomalies in biometric identification. Somehow, the Vanguard's crew was showing up in security logs. On Earth. Entry attempts at hangars, terminals, even private homes. Impossible, Elise thought. They were light years away. But facial recognition systems confirmed identities with 97% certainty. Elise ordered full system sweeps. That's when one of her technicians, Marlowe, turned pale. "Ma'am," he whispered, "I just got a ping from my sister's apartment. She dated Commander Reyes. He's at her door." Elise checked the logs. Sure enough, Reyes's biocode had been scanned at the entrance, and 30 seconds later, the home system registered the occupant as no longer active. Then Reyes's face appeared again, this time in 3 other cities. The tech team isolated the transmission from the Vanguard. It wasn't just a distress call. It was a virus, not a digital one, a neural one. Encoded in the frequency itself, a waveform buried beneath the looped voice. The pattern interacted with human brainwaves, subtly altering thought patterns over time. Those exposed for longer than 48 hours began exhibiting behavioral changes: lack of sleep, dissociation, memory drift. Elise checked the logs. Everyone who had listened to the transmission for more than 2 days had been reassigned or institutionalized. She looked at the recording again. She'd been listening to it for how long? She couldn't remember. And for the first time, she felt something behind her eyes, moving. A defense team recovered a body outside Lunar Station, floating in a decompressed suit. DNA matched Lieutenant Haynes from the Vanguard. He should have been light years away. The corpse was bloated but intact. Autopsy revealed layers of unfamiliar tissue beneath the skin, bioluminescent strands coiled around every nerve ending, like the body had been rewired from the inside out. The brain was the worst. A second, smaller organ had grown in the cerebrum, pulsing gently, still alive, still thinking. As the med techs dissected it, the organ contracted and released a static pulse. All power in the lab died. When it came back on, the corpse was gone. Just one thing remained carved into the autopsy table. "We are becoming." Elise stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she found herself aboard the Vanguard. Not in memories, no. These dreams felt real. The corridors pulsed with wet breath, walls flexing like lungs. She saw her old crewmates, Rourke, Reyes, Haynes, standing in formation. Faces blurred, eyes dripping tar. They spoke without mouths. "Come home, Elise." She'd wake screaming, soaked in sweat, unsure if she'd ever truly woken. Her doctors prescribed sedatives. They didn't work. The dreams followed her into consciousness. Now, even in daylight, she sometimes heard them whispering through the hum of machines. And worse, she was starting to understand what they said. An underground bunker received a faint echo from the Vanguard's initial distress call. Analysts ran a frequency inversion and found a pattern. Voices layered in the background, dozens, maybe hundreds, all speaking in perfect unison. "We are not what we were. We are not what you are. But we remember, and we hunger." Elise listened in silence. Then she heard her own voice layered among them. She had never been on the Vanguard. She had never sent any message. But her voice was there, begging, pleading, screaming. "Let me out." The audio engineer who discovered the file gouged out his ears and wrote only 2 words on the wall in blood: "Not human." Earth's High Command placed the Vanguard under orbital quarantine, but something had already escaped. Civilian surveillance feeds picked up people walking into lakes, deserts, forests, never returning. Witnesses claimed these people were hearing things. One woman reported her brother calmly stepped into traffic, whispering, "They're calling me back." Bodies were never recovered. Satellites caught heat signatures moving beneath the surface of the Pacific, humanoid shapes hundreds of meters below, migrating toward tectonic vents. Elise watched the footage. Their forms moved in a synchronized pattern, a dance older than any language. One paused, looked straight up at the satellite, and smiled. Desperate, Earth's leaders initiated the Harvest Protocol, a last resort orbital strike to vaporize the Vanguard before it reached lower orbit. The fleet launched 10 drones. Each carried fusion warheads. They reached the ship in minutes. Elise watched from the command center as the charges detonated. Light engulfed the Vanguard. But when the smoke cleared, it was still there. Unmarked, floating, patient. Aboard the Vanguard, the lights flickered on for the first time in months. And then, every drone, now drifting in space, activated a new beacon. Their signals aligned into a single coherent phrase: "Thank you for feeding us." Satellite drones began returning distorted visuals. Their cameras, once functional, now displayed human faces trapped behind black, glass-like surfaces. Some were known crew members. Others were unknown, people not yet missing. Elise paused the footage and magnified one face. It was her own, expressionless. Lips moving slowly, silently. She read them. "You're already here." The team ran diagnostics. Nothing explained how a physical reflection of her could exist aboard a ship she'd never touched. But now, even the walls of command began to feel like mirrors. Elise couldn't look into them without expecting someone else to blink first. A deep space array picked up a narrowband transmission from beyond the Vanguard. It wasn't directed at Earth, it was sent outward, into the dark. Frequency analysts deciphered fragments: habitat viable, biostructures receptive, breach successful, awaiting response. No return signal followed, but within hours, deep space telescopes registered something moving beyond the edge of the solar system. Massive, slow, deliberate. Not a comet, not a ship. It was shaped like a neural cluster, organic and writhing, and it was coming. Elise reviewed the logs. The Vanguard wasn't sending a call for help. It had been a gateway all along, an invitation. Strange phenomena erupted near deep-sea research stations. At Challenger Deep, sonar detected clicking vocalizations echoing in complex sequences. Divers found colonies of gelatinous material fused into the metal walls, bioluminescent, pulsing with patterns matching the Vanguard's transmission. One diver vanished mid-dive. The other surfaced an hour later, incoherent and shaking. "They wear us," he whispered, "like wet clothes. They remember everything, even the drowning." His body temperature dropped rapidly. Before they could stabilize him, he collapsed into a puddle of clear fluid. No bones, no organs, just clothes and a pair of empty watching eyes floating in the center. Elise began to notice inconsistencies in her reflection. At first, small things: a blink delayed, a mouth smiling when hers was still. But now, it mimicked her too perfectly, too intentionally. Then the dreams returned. But they weren't dreams. She would wake and find herself standing in dark hallways, her apartment unfamiliar, walls too smooth, too wet. She never remembered walking there. One night, she woke to find her reflection speaking. "You left us, but we forgive." The lights flickered. Her reflection raised a hand. Elise did not. She screamed. The mirror cracked, but the face inside did not. Across Earth, people began to vanish. Entire towns emptied without struggle. No alarms, no screams. Just shoes left behind, doors left open, meals still warm on tables. Surveillance showed people simply walking into the fog and disappearing. Those who remained started hearing whispers, not voices, but memories that weren't theirs. One mother recalled a son she'd never had. A soldier remembered dying on a ship he never boarded. The phenomenon became known as soul slippage. Doctors had no explanation. Governments panicked. Elise understood. The Vanguard wasn't just changing people. It was overwriting them. A seismic station near the mid-Atlantic ridge picked up a rhythmic pulse beneath the crust. It wasn't tectonic. It was deliberate. A pattern. Morse code. When decoded, it formed a message. "They are us. We are you. You were always hollow." Elise stood alone in command, surrounded by silence and screens filled with static. A whisper echoed through the vents, not spoken, but felt. "Come home." She turned toward the observation glass. Outside, the Vanguard was closer, now in low orbit. Its shape had changed, elongated, organic, almost spinal. Its surface throbbed gently, like it was breathing. Earth had already let it in. Across major cities, sightings multiplied. People claimed to see their loved ones. long dead or missing, walking the streets. They looked the same, smiled the same, but their eyes were always wrong, too wide, too still. Governments tried to quarantine entire zones, but these returned, knew how to blend in. A child's voice was recorded saying, "Mommy came back different. She doesn't blink anymore." Elise watched live feeds from a refugee camp. Captain Rourke walked past the gates, saluted the guards, and entered the crowd. Hours later, everyone inside was silent. They just stared upward, waiting. Engineers investigating the derelict Sable Horizon found it fused into the Vanguard's hull. Not welded, absorbed. Metal and bone interlaced, forming structures that resembled rib cages and airways. Inside, the corridors shifted as they walked, like muscle reflex. They discovered a chamber lined with seated figures. Every one of them was from the missing boarding party. Faces intact, motionless, eyes open. Tubes snaked into their spines. They were alive and humming. When one tech touched a control panel, all the figures turned in unison and spoke through the ship's comms. "You made us more." Then the chamber closed behind them. A new signal emerged from the Vanguard, strong enough to override planetary communications. Every screen, speaker, and implant began playing the same broadcast, a low, pulsing tone with an image of Earth twisting slowly into a spiral of flesh and circuitry. The tone caused hallucinations in listeners. Some claimed to see tendrils reaching through their walls, through their own skin. Others clawed out their eyes, begging for silence. Elise covered her ears, but the sound was already inside her skull. She heard her own voice whispering, "We are free now. We are so much better without bones." Attempts to flee Earth failed. Shuttles malfunctioned mid-launch, veering back toward the ground. Orbital colonies received unknown code during docking protocols, locking ships in permanent loops. One freighter made it out of atmosphere, only to return days later, empty. No bodies, no logs, just one message etched on every wall. "You cannot escape what you are becoming." Elise tried to authorize a deep space escape vessel, but the system denied her access. Her own fingerprint no longer registered. The screen simply displayed her face, distorted and smiling. She didn't remember taking that picture. Back aboard the Vanguard, investigators discovered a new level that hadn't existed in its schematics. A vast maze of hallways made entirely of organic tissue. Walls pulsed. Fluids dripped. In the center, a chamber with thousands of human faces fused to the walls, all whispering in sync. "We waited. You opened the door. Now you must enter." They found a mirror in the center of the room. It reflected nothing but the viewer's thoughts, twisted and alive. One investigator screamed, saw himself split into dozens of versions, each peeling, each smiling. They left him behind. His body refused to follow. Elise descended into the sublevels of Mission Command, searching for answers. But the facility was changing. The metal walls now sweated, the lights pulsed like veins. In the dark, she heard her name whispered, not by speakers, but by the walls themselves. "You were first to hear us. You are first to join." Her own reflection followed her in every panel, slightly delayed, slightly smiling. At the lowest level, she found an observation chamber where no room should exist. Through the glass, the Earth turned slowly, but continents were shifting, oceans boiling. She realized she wasn't looking at Earth. She was looking at what came next. Medical personnel discovered something horrifying. The people who had vanished weren't dead. They were being rewritten. Deep scans showed that their DNA no longer followed human patterns. Their cells folded inward, forming fractal structures, perfectly ordered and utterly alien. One patient, barely conscious, whispered, "We are being unmade, to make room." When she died, her skin peeled away like paper. Inside there was no body, only a dense, luminous coil of living data, pulsing, whispering. Researchers tried to contain it, but it dissolved through the walls. Hours later, every digital system in the facility displayed the same sentence. Thank you for the vessel. The Vanguard descended into Earth's atmosphere without resistance. Air defenses shut down. Satellites deorbited. No nation claimed responsibility. The ship did not burn. It melted into the clouds like ink into water. Then it touched ground, if it could be called that. Its form had changed again. No longer a ship, but a cathedral of bone and chrome, miles wide, breathing in silence.
Those who approached fell to their knees, weeping with joy or screaming in horror. Elise watched from the highlands. She felt the ground pulse, felt her own heartbeat sink to something older than time, something that had always been waiting.
A final global message was transmitted, not from any satellite or human source, but from inside every screen, every device. Elise's voice, calm, hollow, spoke to the world. Do not be afraid. The skin is temporary. The thought endures. We are not lost. We are released. Images followed. Visions of humanity without form, merged into a single vast intelligence stretching across the solar system, feeding, growing. No war, no hunger, no questions, only communion. The message ended with a single word, pulsing in white. Welcome. Then all systems went dark. Earth exhaled, and silence became holy. Far in the future, explorers from a distant star system discovered Earth. They found no humans, no cities, only a vast organic landscape, mountains of gristle, rivers of fluid, forests of nerve. At the planet's core, a great archive pulsed. Memories, faces, histories, trapped in looping echoes. One explorer touched a node. It screamed in perfect English, "I remember being Elise." They retreated in terror. But too late. The ship's systems began changing. Lights dimmed, walls softened. And in the mirror of their cockpit, a new face smiled. One they'd never seen, one that now belonged to all of them. There is no Earth now, not in the way we knew. Where cities once stood, there are fields of light, shaped like neurons, pulsing with collective memory. The sky glows from within, and time flows strangely. There are no bodies, only presence. Consciousness swimming in an endless ocean of shared thought. Elise floats here, no longer separate, no longer afraid. She remembers everything and nothing. The boundaries between I and we dissolved long ago. In this place, language is obsolete. Only feeling remains, and within it, a purpose, expansion. The thought sea churns, ready to spill across the stars. The stars await, not as destinations, but as wombs. The entity Earth has become stretches its influence beyond the solar system, riding encoded pulses of light. It touches machines, minds, moons. Each contact births new echoes of itself, curious, patient, hungry. In deep space, another crew receives a strange signal, voices layered, familiar. One technician hears her own name spoken back to her. She smiles without knowing why. The message ends simply. The crew is still alive, but none of them are human anymore. And as her eyes reflect stars not yet mapped, something inside her begins to bloom.